In the beginning of 2017, Japanese developers experienced a renaissance of game development, releasing some of the best games to come out last year, including a Game of the Year. Well, if Monster Hunter World is anything to go by, 2018 promises the same high level of quality games from Japan that we've come to expect. The 13th game in the series, including main and spin-off titles, Monster Hunter World is Capcom's attempt to appeal to a wider Western audience, and having sold over 6 million copies in its opening few weeks, making it the fastest selling series in Capcom's history, it appears to have worked. Now, to give you a bit of background, this is the first Monster Hunter title that I have played. I'll admit, I've always been a bit intimidated by the Monster Hunter series, as it's always seemed to have a very exclusive fan base and has always been known for its complex and difficult combat. I've never taken the plunge, so to speak, and so I've not played any of the previous installments. Bearing that in mind, this review is from the perspective of someone that is entirely new to the franchise, so there won't be too many comparisons made to previous games here. Although Dante and Edge, both having played some of the previous titles, have given me some insight into the improvements made, so I will be talking about those as well. For newcomers to the series, Monster Hunter World is perhaps the best game to jump in on. It's extremely accessible to first-time hunters, while still having the complex depth and challenge that more seasoned hunters require. I went into the game with no expectations, and after playing over 120 hours, I was pleasantly surprised by just how much I enjoyed the experience. The premise of Monster Hunter World is a simple one. You play a young, newly recruited hunter, a fully customizable character. You can choose between gender, skin tone, facial structure and makeup, as well as a multitude of other features. The character customization on offer is excellent, allowing gamers to create some truly unique new faces and some familiar ones too. As a bonus, you can also fully customize your own incredibly cute Palico companion to help you out in battle. I must have easily spent an hour alone just customizing my character and her perfect cat companion. You are part of the 5th Fleet, tasked by the Research Commission to provide support on an expedition to the New World to study elder dragons, powerful beasts that can affect entire ecosystems. During your voyage, you come across Zora Magdalos, a giant elder dragon making its 10-year voyage on a journey known as the Elder Crossing. In the chaos, your ship is damaged and you, your handler and the rest of your fleet are left to rebuild. You are tasked by the fleet commander with the protection of a new outpost from a multitude of dangerous monsters that inhabit this new world. Ultimately though, your mission is to track and capture Zora Magdalos in order to learn more about the mysterious Elder Dragon and uncover the truth behind the Elder Crossing. As stories go, Monster Hunter World provides a passable storyline. There are some interesting twists and reveals in the plot, and you do find yourself caring about the cast and the outcome of their adventure. But if you're looking for a truly outstanding storyline with real depth and complexity, you won't find it here. Still, Capcom have put more of an effort into creating an actual story, which I am told is superior to previous installments, and I think this can be seen in the excellent cutscenes and voice acting. It does need noting though that the lip sync is off now and again for the English soundtrack, though this has more to do with the translation and the fact that the game is designed around the Japanese soundtrack than poor animation.
Don't know about you, but it feels like ages since I left home to join the commission.
Those that play Monster Hunter though know that you don't play it for the story. The real appeal of Monster Hunter World is in the thrill of the hunt, the challenging combat, and the very addictive loot and crafting system. The idea being that with each kill you are able to craft more powerful weapons and armor in order to take on more powerful monsters, and thereby craft even more powerful gear, and herein lies the addictive nature of the game. I myself don't usually like these types of repetitive, grindy, cyclical processes and was expecting to become bored and frustrated quickly, but strangely, Monster Hunter World manages to find a perfect balance, and though you spend most of your time hunting monsters, carving their remains and crafting gear, sometimes hunting the same beast 10 to 20 times, it never becomes dull or stagnated, and I think there are many reasons for this. The first reason is clearly the sheer variety of monsters available to fight. There are 30 large monsters and 17 smaller monsters in the base game alone, with many more promised in future free DLC content. As you progress through the story and explore each area, these monsters are revealed and become progressively more challenging. Each has their own unique fighting style. Some use elemental attacks, others will poison and paralyze you, and some rely on pure brute strength. The designs of each monster are unique and their animations and sound effects are excellent, except for the Basilgeist's roar and musical score, which still gives me nightmares.
That is one frightening monster. Be careful, partner. This is gonna be one nasty fight.
Part of the fun of Monster Hunter World is using the more accessible green flies, a huge improvement over the paintball mechanic of the previous games, I hear. Using these, you search for hints and tracks in the world, gradually revealing more intel and insight into each monster. As you start to learn more about your prey, its physiology, weaknesses, strengths, and the crafting materials you can gain from it, Monster Hunter World turns into a much more tactical based game rather than the typical hack and slash melee game. You find yourself crafting armor to give you an effective elemental defense, and crafting and upgrading weapons to take advantage of its elemental weaknesses. Such tactics become necessary in the higher ranked missions and can mean the difference between life and death. It's this element that more seasoned Monster Hunter players are familiar with, and is an element that gives the game more depth and scope than it would seem to have at a superficial glance. The crafting and loot reward system used in Monster Hunter World is probably its most addictive feature, and the reason that many players come back to the game on a daily basis, or if you're like me, can easily put over 120 hours into the game without blinking an eye. So how does crafting work in Monster Hunter World? Well, it's simple really. You'll be given loot on the reward screen upon the completion of a hunt, in addition to materials you either carve from its remains should you kill the monster, or are given by researchers if you decide to capture it alive. Then, after a trip to the workshop, you can speak to the smithy, who will give you many options for what can be done with these materials. You can choose to forge new armor pieces for yourself or your Palico companion, or craft a new badass weapon, or upgrade a current weapon to increase its DPS or add an elemental effect. There are so many choices that at first it can be a bit overwhelming, but fear not. Once you've thought about what your goal is and what type of hunter you want to be, it becomes a bit clearer when looking at all the bonus stats and abilities you can get from equipping certain armor pieces and combinations. There's nothing cooler than taking down your first beast and seeing what its armor set looks like, then adding this to your crafting wish list, an incredibly useful resource that allows you to track your progress when gathering materials needed for crafting, and then going on the hunt to kill it again and again until you get what you need. Then, the first time you craft your hard-earned piece and equip it like it's a badge of honor, you feel like it's hard-earned. It provides a decent balance between want, challenge, and reward. It's not like other loot-based games like Destiny, for example, where you feel like you're constantly punished by RNG and the rewards never feel worth all the effort you went through. Thankfully, this is not the case in Monster Hunter World, and it's an addictive cycle that never really gets old. I think a lot of this has to do with the player's ability to affect the chances of good loot drops in the game. You can equip certain charms or wear pieces of armor that improve your chances of rare loot drops. During fights as well, you can hit and break certain parts of the monster, which will have a better chance of dropping a piece you need. For example, if you break both of Nergigante's horns in battle, you will have a greater chance of obtaining a Nergigante Horn Plus, which you need to craft high-end weapons. So the loot system is not entirely controlled by random blind luck, something I was very thankful for. There is a huge number of armor sets available to craft. I have counted somewhere in the ballpark of 145 sets. That's not including some of the sets available as timed exclusives, like the Aloy set from Horizon Zero Dawn on the PlayStation 4, or the Samurai set gained from pre-ordering the game. And I'm sure there will be even more armor and weapon sets added with new monsters that are sure to be introduced in future DLC. All these armor sets can be worn as full sets, or you can mix and match different pieces to support your preferred playstyle or objective. You can also share the look, style and stats of your hunter by sharing your guild card online, and you even get an achievement for collecting 50 of them from other online players. This creates a real sense of community in the game, and it's awesome to see some of the cool armor combinations used by other gamers. Let's talk a little about the combat and weapons in the game. Combat in Monster Hunter World is smooth and fluid. You are able to lock onto the monster easily using the right thumbstick, which, given the speed that some of the monsters have, is a necessity. The camera works well in tracking their movement and helps when timing your dodges and evasive rolls. Your own character's movement and attack speed and range, however, is heavily affected by the weapon that you choose. All 14 weapon types are available from the get-go. You can choose any weapon and switch freely between them. They range from fast, rapid weapons like the dual blades, big, weighty, hefty, damage-dealing weapons like the great sword and hammer, to range weapons like the bow and heavy bowgun. There are so many different styles of combat and weapons to choose from to easily find a match for your own playstyle. There is a training ground for you to practice each weapon and test its damage output and button combinations, but the game doesn't really direct you past that, and you have to figure out most of the weapons by yourself, either through trial and error, or if you're like me, by watching information videos on YouTube. If you're new to Monster Hunter like I was, I would say that the sword and shield and the longsword are the most beginner friendly of the melee weapons. They're easier to master and heaps of fun to use. But if you're a fan of ranged combat, then the bow is a nice balance between speed and accuracy. For much of my game, I jumped between the longsword and bow and heavily enjoyed both of these weapons. After 120 hours, I'm now actually thinking about trying out the dual blades, which will add a lot of replay value to the game, as each fight feels radically different depending on what weapon you use. This keeps the game feeling fresh and new. Another element to the combat that I really loved was the lack of a health bar above monsters' heads. I'd become so used to this mechanic that it was refreshing not to see it here. You can of course see the amount of damage you are doing to the beast in numbers that pop up on screen, and these are color coded to give you hints as to when you hit a particularly weak spot, but the lack of a health bar really immerses you in the fight and forces you to watch the beast closely for telltale signs like the monster's wings or armor starting to look tattered and torn, or the monster tiring, struggling to breathe, or limping away. It is a great design choice that I think many other games should implement. Let's talk a little about the environments and visuals in Monster Hunter World. This is the first Monster Hunter game to be brought to next gen and across all platforms except the Nintendo Switch, which is a very unusual decision given that Nintendo has had a monopoly on the main series pretty much since 2009. Whatever the reason, Capcom's decision to showcase the game across all major next-gen platforms, including the PS4, Xbox One and PC, was a good one. Not only has this allowed them to appeal to a wider Western audience, but the game has benefited heavily from the more powerful hardware. Monster Hunter World is a visually stunning game. The worlds are beautiful and varied. There are 5 areas in total, plus 2 hub worlds. Each area is vastly different in design and scope, and they feel real and dynamic. This is thanks in part to the different wildlife, vegetation, weather and hazards each area possesses. All maps have a great sense of verticality to them, including vines and grapple points for you to gain height and advantage over a monster, allowing you to mount the beast and attack its weak spots or chase a prey down quickly when it flees. The wildlife that inhabit the worlds also feel real and dynamic. Their AI is excellent. There is a very real food chain that exists in each area. Larger monsters will hunt smaller prey, and big monsters will even fight each other in huge turf wars. This is 100% dynamic. It can happen in real time at any moment. The effect of this is that all fights feel different and exciting. There are memorable moments that happen in game that are unique to your own experience.
Oh,
dude!
Oh,
Jesus.
grabbed him by the scruff of the neck.
Yep.
Get. Oh, that's 1,000 damage there.
Hell
Nice.
yeah! You see that damage?
Mine.
The introduction of open areas and free traversal between different zones on a map without the need for loading screens like those that existed in previous installments has also massively improved the feel and pacing of fights and the freedom of traversal that hunters have. You actually feel like you're hunting down a beast as you traverse and track it between areas. This ease of movement keeps the game feeling fast-paced and exciting. Another great mechanic in Monster Hunter World is the inclusion of online multiplayer. Now, Monster Hunter has always been a game that encourages cooperative play, and in World this continues as the game allows you to play online in teams of up to 4 players in order to take on quests and hunts with your friends and fellow hunters. Playing online does have its pros and cons, of course. The difficulty level is increased, increasing your likelihood of dying, and the reward money gained from completing a quest is shared between the 4 players. But what you gain from the experience far outweighs the negatives. The extra challenge can be fun, and the fights are definitely more enjoyable and memorable with other players. The game forces you to communicate and plan your attack, using tactics and coordinated strikes to take down your target. If you don't have 3 other friends that own the game, not to worry, you can pop an SOS flare and call for help, allowing other players to randomly jump into your mission to provide support. You can also actively seek out other players, searching for particular missions and shared goals. I would say that Monster Hunter World can be played purely single player with your OP Palico companion, but it is a far more enjoyable experience playing it online with friends. So overall, Monster Hunter World is an excellent game. It is a huge game, and Capcom have truly outdone themselves, providing hours of varied content. Depending on what you're looking for, you can focus almost entirely on the 50+ hour single player campaign, carry out optional side quests or investigations to hunt low rank, high rank or the more deadly tempered beasts, or for those looking for a bit of quick jump in action, why not take on an arena quest with your friends, or for the more relaxed gamer in you, challenge your friends to an arm wrestling contest, do a bit of foraging, or enjoy a spot of light fishing. The game does a lot to encourage you to come back, having recently introduced weekly bounties and quests for you to tackle. Having put over 120 hours into the game and finished the main campaign, there is still so much for me to do that I feel I have only scratched the surface. Now, I've done nothing but praise Monster Hunter World so far, and absolutely it deserves such, but it is not a perfect game and there are a few points that bothered me. Now, these are niggly points and I am being picky here, but they're points nonetheless. One of the things I liked and disliked about World is its lack of hand-holding. I do believe that a lot of games nowadays do too much hand-holding and don't allow gamers to experiment early doors and learn what their limitations are. For Monster Hunter World, my main issue was the lack of explanation on some key points that should have been included, from little silly things like hold down circle to carve or collect resources quickly, or tap L1 down on an item to replenish it from your item box, to more serious issues like how to set up an online quest with your friends. This issue caused a lot of confusion and frustration as we tried to understand quest ID codes, how to create a squad or invite a friend, and then how to launch or join a friend's quest. None of these things were clear at all and took some figuring out. This just seemed like a massive oversight on Capcom's part. Hopefully they'll make these elements easier and more apparent in future updates. Secondly, the other issue that really bothered me was an inability to play the single player campaign easily with my friends. The game, in a bizarre twist, enforces a rule that states all party members must have seen the mission cutscene before they can join a story mission. What this often meant was that in order to play a mission together, you both would have to play the beginning of the mission to watch the cutscene separately, then exit the mission back to base, and then restart the mission together. This would inevitably break the pacing of the story and damage both the immersion and your overall enjoyment. This just seemed like a huge design flaw and a puzzling decision on Capcom's part. So there you have it, those are my thoughts on Monster Hunter World, a truly outstanding game and an excellent start to the year. As stated, while there are some small niggling issues, this does not overshadow the game's achievements. Monster Hunter World was a massive success for Capcom, with good reason, providing gamers with hours of fun content and gameplay. As a newcomer to the franchise, I have to say I have been blown away by how much I have enjoyed my first Monster Hunter experience, and it's for this reason that I've chosen to give it a well-deserved 9 out of 10. Monster Hunter World is a must-buy in my opinion, and one of the best games to come out in 2018 so far. I am looking forward to seeing where Capcom takes the series and what further content they will offer in the upcoming months. If you enjoyed this review, please like, comment and subscribe for more. Have a great week, my fellow hunters. Take care, and as always, happy gaming. Wait, what's that?